Greetings. So here we are back with buttonholes, and this is part 2. If you see here, I'm actually waxing my thread. As you can see, the color of the thread I'm waxing is similar to the color of the thread we used to do the whip stitch to start the buttonhole. Now, my wax is pretty well warmed up here. If you have wax that is really cold, it doesn't like to go on the thread, so my recommendation is to put it in your pocket or somewhere that can get warm. Thread your needle. As you can see, I like to wax my thread before I put it on the needle, mostly because I don't like the wax build up inside my needle hole. That's a personal preference. I actually have a fairly long piece here, probably a little longer than I need for the buttonhole. If you look, you can see I have a whole bunch of buttonholes already done. I'm down to the last 2. I recommend starting on the left side, and if you are somebody who can work from both sides, that's great. If you can't, you just turn it as you work. I come up from the bottom, and I don't worry that the tail is going to stick out a little bit. If you see it sticks out a little bit here, don't worry about that. You're going to come back up from underneath, and I like to start with just a plain whip stitch. There are various ways of starting the buttonhole, but this is my preference. If you watch, I lay my thread down above and out of the way. I come up from the bottom. I make sure that I grab all that fabric, and then I come down, I pull in and then pull out, and then I come up beside it again and I pull down and then I pull up. And then we'll do it again, pull down, and then pull up. Pull down, and then pull up. Pull down, and then pull up. Pull down 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 and then pull up. Down and then up. Now as you go around the corner, they should be a little closer together, I guess, would be the term I'm looking for, because you want to have a nice rounded arch as you go around that end. I haven't seen any buttonholes specifically that have the bar tabs until probably another 100 years later, after, well, 17th century, I guess, is where I've noticed the bar tabs. I haven't really noticed bar tabs before then. So all of the pieces that I've made for the SCA have had rounded buttonholes. If there are bar tabs, then either I haven't been paying attention, which is possible, or they didn't have them. And I'm sure somebody will correct me at some point and let me know what the actual historical accuracy of this is. And I welcome that knowledge. And then I can make adjustments. I can do bar tabs. I've done 17th century buttonholes on 17th century garments. But this is an earlier garment, so I'm doing the rounded buttonhole. Having a hard time keeping the piece far away enough from the camera so that it stays focused for you. Now, if you notice, I haven't really moved the doublet too much. I mean, I've moved it so it's a little bit more in front, but rather than turning the doublet, I'm moving around the hole. So how you adjust for this for your own comfort in sewing is entirely your own choice. Now, if you notice also that underlayer whip stitch does not really interfere with your buttonhole construction. If anything, it makes it really nice that you're not chasing the fabric as you're going around and doing your buttonhole. You know it's all going to stay there. You don't have to make sure you're grabbing all 4 or 5 layers of fabric in your buttonhole, which is nice. If you've ever had to do buttonholes where you have had to double check and make sure that you've grabbed all your fabric, and then you turn it on the other side and you have massive pieces that are not connected, you will understand why the whip stitching is so essential to doing a successful buttonhole that doesn't cause you mass frustration and anger. The wax thread does make it a little tricky going through all this fabric, in the sense that it does make it very stiff. And as you can tell, I'm really having to pull on parts of this as I'm, pulling the thread and needle all through the fabric. But if you don't use wax thread, oftentimes by the time you get to the end of your buttonhole, your thread is frayed. You may or may not have broken your thread already once. It just makes it for an easier process. Okay, so I have my buttonhole done. As you can see, I have these, just a few of these pieces, and I just clip them off. They don't really matter. I run my thread underneath the stitching and in the lining of the buttonhole to hide it. I usually go one way for a little ways and back the other direction for quite a ways as well. And that usually is plenty to tie it off and hide it. And I've managed to get myself a little bit of a knot here. There we go. Don't know what all that was about. Okay. And then we clip that. Now there's actually just enough thread here to do the final buttonhole. And this one is, if you look at it, it's kind of a messy place. I have the seam of the peplum here where it's connected to the doublet. And then I have, I don't know if you can see it, but I've hand stitched the peplum lining to the doublet lining, hand stitched it here. And then I had to go back over and I had to put in this, I didn't have to do it by machine, but it was definitely a lot faster to put in this tips waist piece that connects the waist of the doublet to the pants. And so I have several areas here that have been hand stitched and that have also been machine stitched. So I have several layers of fabric here that have been stitched and stitched again and folded and stitched again. So this is going to be a struggle with this particular buttonhole, and it might end up being a little messier than the others, but we will make it work. Thank you very much.